Look at that piece of meat. So this pot roast recipe has been in my family for decades. It's exactly what you want in a pot roast. It's tender, slow-cooked meat in a beautiful, rich broth with veggies and potatoes in it. It only takes a few ingredients to make, and the prep is so simple. So let's get started. It starts off with a big hunk of meat. I have in a nice baking dish or a casserole pan, you wanna buy a beautiful piece of chuck pot roast. It's a cut of beef. Chuck is usually not something that you're gonna be looking for typically in the grocery store, but it makes the best pot roast because it falls apart when you cook it low and slow. So I have a big 3 to 4 pound piece of chuck pot roast, and to it, I'm going to add my broth. And you might think we're gonna spend hours making this broth. No. The best way to do it, according to my family, is to buy some onion soup in a can and just pour it right into the bottom of your casserole pan. That's it. I like to buy condensed onion soup in the grocery store because it's a little bit more rich and thick. It's basically like cooked down onion soup. And you want to use 4 to 5 cans. It's amazing how the onion soup has all the flavoring that you need to just make such a good pot roast. So after the broth, you can literally just stick this in the oven the way that it is, and that's it. Or you can add some veggies and potatoes and some herbs if you want to give this something a little extra special. So I have some potatoes here. I couldn't find any baby red potatoes in the grocery store, so I just got regular ones. So I'm just gonna cut these in half or in quarters and just pop them right into my broth, just like that. And then I just got some baby carrots, and I'm gonna pop that just around my roast too, trying to get them in the broth as much as possible. You can also add in shallots, you can add in pearl onions, really anything you want that fits in your pan and is almost submerged in that liquid. So then trick of the trade is you can just take a spoon and kind of push down all of your veggies and your potatoes into the broth. And if it looks like you have a little bit more room, then you can keep adding more ingredients. So it looks like I can fit in a few more carrots. So you want to make sure again that all your veggies are as submerged as possible, and you want your meat to be almost completely covered in your liquid. You don't want your pan halfway filled and your beef sticking really far up. This is about as far up as you can let your beef go. So again, you can stop there. You don't have to add any herbs at all, or you can get some dried herbs in your herb cabinet, or you can get some fresh herbs. I like some rosemary in here, just to give it a little extra flavor in the broth. And then I also just like to add in a little bit of fresh thyme. You can also use dried thyme too. And last step. Ta-da! Take your spoon again and just press your herbs right into your broth, just like that. And then you just want to cover this guy tightly with foil. So I'm gonna go grab my foil. Go to sleep. It's time to set it to rest. So I'm just going to tightly cover my pan with aluminum foil. You really want to make sure it's nice and tight all around the edges of your big roasting pan. You're just gonna put this in the oven at 300 degrees for 4 hours. Don't touch it, don't open it, just let it stay in the oven for 4 hours straight. It's gonna get nice and pull apart and tender and amazing. Once you take this guy out, it should reach about 195 degrees plus. That's the key temperature to making sure that your pot roast will fall apart and be nice and tender. Trick of the trade when you're putting your pot roast in the oven is to put a lined baking sheet on the bottom of the oven, the bottom rack, just like this. So that way, any drips from our pot roast will go right in the lined baking sheet because it's guaranteed to drip. 4 hours later, covered, untouched, steaming in its own bath of loveliness, you get this pot roast. Let's dig in, baby. Oh, look at this piece of meat. Look at that beautiful fall apart, tender meat. And my favorite way of serving, I mean, the only way of serving, is to take a spoon, get a potato in there, some carrots, and then of course, that lovely French onion juice and herbs. Gotta admit, that wasn't my first bite of meat. It's like my 20th. It is so good. There's a reason why this recipe has been passed down throughout my entire family. It is so good, so easy, and a perfect winter staple. Check this out on tastefullygrace.com. You won't regret it. And then you're just going to put this in the oven, 400.